Hi everyone, it's Elizabeth here. So I wanted to do this video in regards to just sharing my story on how I became less tech dependent and 3 ways that you can become less dependent on technology. So here's the thing, most people today are addicted to technology. The irony of me having this conversation through the interwebs is funny because there is a value and a really good side of technology, but there's also the dark side to technology that has created us to be monsters. It's breeding narcissism and psychopathy. It's making us a little bit more like artificial intelligence, which that in turn will reduce our abilities to have empathy and compassion. So I feel a lot of people are addicted to technology. This can be on a global scale, but I notice it a lot while personal training a lot of tech people in Seattle. When I've gone to other places like Ohio or the East Coast, I don't necessarily see people plugged in as much as I do out here in the West Coast, and maybe that's because the big corporations are based out here, and still a lot in the East Coast. You might have some offices of Microsoft or Google or whatever, but you just don't have the headquarters, so it's not like this epicenter or this mecca of tech people. In my mid to late 20s, I was very resistant to getting an iPhone. And I had to do it because I was taking a bath one day and my phone was on the ledge of the bathtub, and my cat came in and just swiped my phone into the bathtub. And at that point I was like, oh man, smartphones are already out for like 2 years. And it was just that time that, you were kind of like forced to go into it because flip phones and things like that were becoming obsolete. So along the way of my journeying, I was really just very ambitious in my late 20s, trying to succeed in the fitness industry, and a lot of my dependency and self-worth was relied upon technology because I did mentoring with certain people in the fitness industry that also said in order to become well known, like you have to be popular, and being popular meant having a really large following on social media, as not also with interactions. And so a lot of my self-worth and dependency on technology increased because at that time Instagram wasn't, even a thing. So it was a lot of this rat race on like LinkedIn and Facebook as the main forms of social media, and Twitter was out at the time. But then here's the thing, I moved to Germany, and I think living in Europe gave me this natural life that we humans used to have in America prior to the indoctrination of mass technological use. In Germany, the shops were closed on Sundays. There were a few places that were open in the Hauptbahnhof, which is the central train station. A couple cafes were open in town. But basically, everything was closed. So you really had no choice but to enjoy life either in nature or with others. You could sit at home and just watch things like Netflix, but that really wasn't a great lifestyle choice for living abroad. And the irony about living abroad is I and my ex-husband we were on a very strict budget, and so I ended up getting a phone plan, like a renewable like a prepaid phone SIM card, and it was 15 euros a month, but it was only 450 megabytes per month. So I had to be very wise with how much internet I was streaming because I didn't really want to go up to the plan where it was like 35 euro a month. And that sounds like dirt cheap as an American, but we were there, we had to live off of 2 people. We had to live off of, I think, around like 2,600 euro a month. And, we had to pay things like the health insurance, you had the phone plan, we had to pay the rent and things like that. So once you started deducting these things, we were living minimally and basic just to help use a lot of those funds to travel to other countries. So the thing is, I had to learn how to detox from things like YouTube and podcasts, so I could use technology a lot more when I was on Wi-Fi. which the irony of being in Germany and in Europe, Wi-Fi does not exist everywhere. You go to a lot of cafes that are just cafes. They aren't places where you sit down with your laptop for 6 hours and occupy a space. A lot of cafes are smaller. They would have like 3 tables or a few tables, and you would just sit there and socialize and eat a piece of cake and have a latte. So living in Europe really detoxed me for about a year and a half, and that made me learn how to use technology from a practical sense versus having some form of a codependent relationship on it. So I didn't need to always listen to stuff all day long. I didn't need to be plugged in. Because of streaming, I listened to the natural world, or I had to use my iPod Nano from 2005, one of the original ones. I used that for bike riding rather than using my phone. So, and then traveling as well. I didn't use things like my laptop. I didn't carry my laptop with me. So to some degree, I retrained my physiology and my brain to live a natural life that was not dependent upon technology. Now, transitioning back into America, I adopted or kept with a lot of those concepts. My technology use definitely has increased in America, but I've learned to use things practically. So on my phone, I think I have like 8 apps downloaded. I don't need an app to tell me certain things or to make things quicker or to hack certain stuff. I don't need an Alexa device or a Google Echo to tell me how to turn on my lights. Like, I'm a human being. I can do that myself. The way I protest is by channeling my money into certain areas, and I do not want to give my money to Amazon. And I just feel like the Alexa device further dumbs us down, and it is a form of a KGB spy device. I know this because I work with clients who work at Amazon they work on the Alexa team, and they can't reveal certain things. But any software engineer that you talk to, they understand that these devices are constantly listening and recording all day long because they have to listen for the cue, Alexa. So anyways, it's just something to think about. And then this year, I was just so frustrated with stuff. Like, the more I gravitated toward the natural world, I wanted to be less involved in the artificial world. And that includes the overuse of technology. And so back in May and June, I ended up doing a 45-day social media detox, or just a digital detox. And I've linked that video and stuff down below that you can listen to it if you're interested. But, through that experience, I didn't really care about Instagram. I didn't care about the attention that I was getting from social media, really. It's like, to some degree, if you want to have an online business or to succeed online, you have to have an online presence. But there is this disconnect of having your self-worth be linked up to the success of your online presence. And that's really difficult because America is a very extreme culture. And we are probably, maybe besides pockets in Asia, we are very tech dominant. And a lot of our self-worth comes through the work that we do. A lot of Americans do not take their vacation time. And so we are very much focused on work and money and paying our stuff. It's a very consumeristic culture. So you have to be kind of focused in on some of those things work-wise to be able to survive and live, because life in America is getting more expensive. So during that digital detox, it's just like, it just helped me reprioritize things. It's like, I kind of thought about quitting my blog this YouTube channel. It's like, I just didn't really want anything to do with the online world, at least for a temporary period of time. So 3 ways that you can start to help yourself detox from the internet or social media or your phone. 1, you have to start to look at the practical versus the codependent relationship. Humans have lived for thousands of years before technology. We've done everything in humanity through the use of our mental faculties and critical thinking, and through the use of building things with our hands. And so you can use your phone, you can look at your phone as a practical tool. It can help you, navigate a map. Yes, your email, it can make phone calls, it could text message, you can get some social media apps. But there's a lot of stuff out there that's just junk and shit, like Snapchat. I don't have it, I don't care about it. That's just me. But the reality is, how much energy and time are you spending on something that has absolutely no worth or value? Probably to some degree, Facebook has a little bit more worth and value because you have things like Messenger and you can communicate and keep in touch with people from around the world. You can get updates from community groups or from people. Like, there is an awareness piece on Facebook that is positive. Like, you might see an article posted on Facebook and it might make you critically think a little bit, like, wow, I didn't realize that about the environment or about the government or things like that. And so the first step is understanding your practical use versus your codependent use. What are you codependent on and what makes you addicted? You need to realize that, these corporations, they're smart. They know what to do. These companies have these think tanks that understand how the human body and the psychological mind works. And so a lot of times when you're getting more of those likes, you're getting a different hormonal flow. It's like dopamine. When you get a text message from somebody that you like, you become elated. And that, form of elation is secreting certain hormones like serotonin or dopamine, the feel-good chemicals to help that feeling of being elated. And so it's the opposite. Like when you fall out of love and you're no longer getting those hits from somebody that's interested in you, or those text messages or phone calls from people that you like you kind of go through some form of withdrawal because you're not getting hit with all those chemicals. So a lot of these apps, especially the more attention you get, the more addicted you are or codependent you are, because it's almost like being on a drug. You're just on a temporary high. So that's the first step, understanding your practical and codependent relationship. And the second step is maybe doing a digital detox. Do you need to completely cut out some form of social media or technology for a while? Whether it's 7 days or 21 days, I think just starting to eliminate it for a little bit, it is like a personal challenge. It can help you realize what is most valuable in your life. And let me tell you, for most people, it's not social media. It's not being online. That is not giving people self-worth. A lot of times, it's a lot of lonely people that are using social media to get some form of self-worth or attention or some form of love and acceptance from other people because they're not getting it in the real world. So a digital detox might definitely be the best way for you to start to break the chains of being technology dependent. And the third way is just, this uses a little bit of self-actualization, but, there is that whole Pavlov theory where it's like once the bell would ring, the dog would respond and get a treat and things like that. So once your phone buzzes, do you automatically have to feel the need to respond all the time? And how does that translate in your life? Do you have to respond while you're driving? Like, is there a form of immediacy that you think you need to respond so quickly? Humans aren't a computer, and the human emotion isn't an on and off light switch. A lot of times when people are social media, I guess, addicts or technological addicts, it's like they cannot sit and concentrate, or they cannot go to, let's use this for an example. Back in the day when you would attended a conference, you had no fucking clue what was going on outside in the real world, and you were just paying attention to the speaker. Nowadays, because we have technology, you have all these people like, oh, wait, it's an emergency. And most of the times it's not an emergency. There are legitimate cases where there are emergencies where people need to respond to a message and stuff right away. But, it's like a lot of times people are rude, or if you've ever been on a date and someone is like text messaging somebody else on the date, like, I guess, things like that happen. It's fine. But when it happens numerous times throughout the session, it's kind of like, can this person put the technological device down, or is something that urgent? Generally, if it is that urgent, they should, let the other person know. But yeah, your sense of urgency. Is it necessary to have to respond right away? How valuable is your time? How valuable is driving that car from point A to point B without being distracted? So you have to do a little bit of self-actualization and look at how is technology running or ruling you. I have zero problems driving, 20 minutes and then responding to the text message once I park the car. Like, it's not that big of a deal. I want to respond more thoughtfully rather than it being like a quick thing and stuff like that. So just eliminating the urgency, I think, is going to help eliminate some of the dependency on technology. So these are some thoughts that I have. If you've been addicted to technology, it would be great to kind of know what you think. We can't lose human empathy, but the one thing that we can be a little less empathetic on is maybe our phones. Like, I don't personally really care about certain stuff, like going on online dating. Like, if nothing happens, I'm at a point in my life where I'm content and I'm completely fine if nothing happens. Maybe you come out with a few friends, maybe you come out with nothing. There's a lot of that development and self-worth that comes from within that needs to be developed, and understanding who you are and your value in this life comes from the actions and things that you do in the real world and not through this virtual kind of technology world. And if you are, I've been down this road and it's happened to me just even in the last year. It's like, oh man, I'm not getting as many likes anymore on my pictures. Like, what am I doing wrong? And you know what? It's totally fine. If like one person likes my picture, I don't really care at this point. It's like, that's just the point of going against the grain of the mainstream life. So if you have any thoughts or anything on how to start to eliminate your social media technological use, that's great. If you find that you have to play video games while you're attending like a meetup group or you're in class or something like that, then you kind of have to look into it. Is that video game really that important to where you can't pay attention and put your focus and attention onto the things that are happening? I've seen this. I've seen it at conferences. I've seen it at meetup groups where, people are just playing on their video games, not giving a shit about what, the presenter or the person is talking about. So anyways, these are some thoughts that I have. If you have any questions, or comments, feel free to note them below. If you can subscribe to this channel. If you've detoxed from social media or don't feel dependent on it, I'd love to know what you think. We live in a world that is a battle between the artificial and the natural world, and I'm an advocate for the natural world. As a personal trainer, I understand that nothing can replace the human emotion, and artificial intelligence is trying to replace that. So that's my also personal protest, to give my middle finger up to technology, to appreciate it for the light side, for the practical functional use, to the ability that it gives us to communicate to people. However, you draw the line in the sand to where you don't let it overtake your self-worth and let it affect your mental health and well-being. All right, thank you guys for liking, sharing, and subscribing.